I'm no shock jock. I'm not gonna just say things to get views. I'm not gonna say things that aren't real. I'm not gonna just say things that are gonna make you feel good. I don't do that. And if you've ever followed me at any point along the line, um, with my page Detroit Lions News, which is now Detroit Lions News podcast, you understand that I have been, realistic. I'm not gonna sit here and shoot from the hip and give you clickbait material. That just ain't me. But when I look at the Detroit Lions in 2025, it makes me feel like this could be a little bit clickbaity. And it's not. It's honestly not. I've been doing my research on what I'm going to do for the season preview podcast, and there's a couple things that I take out of what I found. So a lot of people are worried about a Graham Glasgow being a center. He was out of position on the left side when Zeitler came to the Detroit Lions. He played right guard. Glasgow slided to left guard. So he's never played that position. It's kind of hard for a guy at his age, with the amount of years that he's played at right guard and center, for him to change to left guard. And people can say it's not a big deal, but it's a huge deal in terms of everything you learned is different now. Coming from the right side to the left side, even coming from the center position, it's totally different on the left side. So there's some guards that could play the right side, they could play the left side. There's some guards that they never have. And if you put him on another side, like if Zeitler would have never played on the left side, that's why he played right guard, and that's why Graham switched over. So when I think about this Detroit Lions team, people worry about the interior offensive line. I do too. Tate Ratledge, I think Mahogany is going to be good. Graham Glasgow at center. I think he'll be a lot better than he was at left guard. I'll tell you that. But as I look at it in the way it is, I look at the defensive side of the ball, and a lot of people worry about the defensive side of the ball. And I look at that linebacker room, like I'm watching preseason football, and the depth of the linebackers is extraordinary. Extraordinary. And if you can keep those guys, which you're not going to keep all those guys, but that's going to be the depth of your linebacker room. And then I look at the safeties. Avonte Maddox been playing at safety. Ian Kennelly has been playing at safety. Lauren Strickland has been playing at safety. He's been a long time safety. So Avonte Maddox was a cornerback last year. I look at the linebackers. There's depth there, right? I think Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone. That's a good combo. And then when you get Malcolm Rodriguez back, it'll be a better combo. I think about the safeties. Your safeties, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, are two of the best safeties in the NFL, bar none. And there's no better duo in the NFL than Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. Then you think about on the defensive line. A lot of people are worried about who's going to do what on the opposite side of Hutch. Let me just explain this to you as reality. Go look at any team in the NFL. Go look at Max Crosby. Who is the other side of Max Crosby? No one knows. Oh, that Tyree whatever kid that was from Texas Tech. Whoops. Who's on the other side of Myles Garrett? Do you know? Do you know who's on the opposite side of TJ Watt? Maybe Alex Highsmith. That might be a little bit too easy. But, except in maybe New York, where you got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, those two bookend defensive ends don't really exist. And when you got the guy who is potentially a leader to be the defensive player of the year in Hutchinson, he's got 24.12% of the money on most bet to win the defensive player of the year. What I'm about to say isn't just an outlandish take. It's actually rooted in facts. I think the Detroit Lions will have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense going into 2025. And people worry about the coordinator changes. I don't, because one, Johnny Morton was here. Kelvin Sheppard was here. They know the players. Johnny Morton, I think he fits with what Jared Goff wants to do. And if you read the tea leaves of what the players are saying from Ben Johnson to Johnny Morton. They're saying that Johnny Morton's more wide open. He's more open to doing certain stuff, doing different stuff that they didn't do with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was more of kind of like, nah, I don't want to do that. It's always good to get players' input. And, you know, even Ben Johnson said in a newspaper article that the Detroit Lions offense can run without him. It's a Ferrari. Like, you don't really need to be this hot shot offensive coordinator to run that offense. When you think about when you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have Dave Montgomery, Jameson Williams, a top 10 offensive line, top 5 offensive line with Ben Johnson when Frank Ragnow was here. Maybe they're still top 10. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Tim Patrick, and then you add in a chance of having a guy like Isaac Tesla who could potentially be an X factor in that offense. Like, there's not enough ball to go around. Like, when you think about the players that are on this offense that are just so damn good, you look at that list. There's no Isaac Tesla on that list. Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick, Sam Laporta. You think about those guys and you think about how good the offense can be. A lot of people are going to sit here and they're going to say, what about Ben Johnson? Who cares of where Ben Johnson is? Ben Johnson isn't going to have this talent that he has in Chicago, that he's going to do with Chicago. Chicago don't have close to the talent that Detroit has. That's just a fact. There's not many teams in the NFL that have the talent that Detroit has. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball. You look at the 2 best safeties in the NFL, a potential defensive player of the year in Aidan Hutchinson. You got Ali McNeil coming back in the middle of the year. You got Tyreek Williams, who's a rookie, but I think he could do pretty well next to DJ Reader. Yes, defensive end on the other side is unknown right now, but if it's a Darius Smith, if it's Marcus Davenport, whoever, their bargain is to get 6 sacks, 8 sacks. They're not going to be asked to get 12 sacks or 14 sacks. That's just not going to happen. But Aidan Hutchinson last year was on pace for close to 22, 23 sacks. So when you think about what the Detroit Lions have been able to do on the defensive side of the ball, they went and got Carlton Davis's replacement with DJ Reed. Carlton Davis didn't want to come back. They go get the better guy in DJ Reed. DJ Reed goes from New York to Detroit. He's going to come into a defensive cornerback room, which I think this is probably the best cornerback room the Detroit Lions have had in quite some time. Think about it. You have a guy like DJ Reed coming in. You have a guy like Amik Robertson. You have a guy like Terran Arnold, who I think could be a really good cornerback in the NFL. And I think he's only going to get better with the players that are around him. You talk about, like I said, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. Those are 2. That's the best safety duo that you're going to in the NFL. There's no safety duo close. None. Your linebacker room is deep. It's solid. Now, the defensive line is a little bit a mixed bag, but by the end of the year, you're going to get Lee McNeil back. You're going to figure out who's on the opposite side of Hutch. And you can imagine Hutch is going to be just roaring and ready to go. So I don't say this to say this, but you look at the Detroit Lions and you look at the players that are around them. Like, having a defensive player of the year in Aidan Hutchinson is huge. Having guys like Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, who are the 5th and the 2nd base safety. You have 2 top 5 safeties in the NFL on your team. It's not an outlandish take to say that Detroit could have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. And there's a lot of people that are going to say this is a little bit of a bold take and whatever the case may be, but rest be assured, like, just do it for me. Go down the list. You have unknown at the defensive end position, right? Defensive tackle, you don't know who Tyreek Williams is going to be or what he's going to do. That's a question mark. You have 2 question marks on the defensive side of the ball. You move over to the offensive side of the ball. Do you have a question mark at quarterback? No. Do you have a question mark at running back? No. Do you have one question at wide receiver? No. Do you have a question about the interior of the offensive line? Now, that is a huge portion. But we've seen Christian Mahogany, we've seen Graham Glasgow play center, and Tate Ratledge, we think is going to be a pretty damn good center for the Detroit Lions. I mean, for a guard for this year. He will transition to center next year. But when you think about it like this, you probably have three or four question marks. Go across the NFL. Do it in your own division. What question marks do the Packers have? What question marks do the Vikings have? What question marks do the Bears have? You look at the Bears. Is Caleb Williams going to be the guy? Is JJ McCarthy going to be the guy? You look on the Packers side. Who's gonna emerge out of the wide receiver position? You know, they got Matthew Golden. He's a rookie. Can Jordan Love stay healthy for a year? He's already hurt. Who's going to give the pass rush for the defensive line for the Packers? You look across the NFL and there's at least 3 or 4 weaknesses that every team has. And as long as they're not fatal weaknesses, you're golden. And I don't see a fatal weakness from the Detroit Lions. There's not one fatal weakness that the Detroit Lions have. I think the interior of the offensive line could be a fatal weakness. But when you think about it like this, the Detroit Lions have the 3rd best roster in the NFL via The Athletic. Just think about that. Like, the Detroit Lions have the 3rd best roster in the NFL per a lot of people. The Athletic has said it. There's been other publications that have said Detroit's the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th best roster. Matter of fact, ESPN did a future power rankings, and they said that you were the 5th best team going to 2027. And the only weakness they measured for the Detroit Lions was the coordinators. Even like if you're reading like Eric Woodyard, right? He did a little synopsis on ESPN.com for their NFL Nation kind of thing. And the only weakness he could put down was the coordinators. You don't really have this massive weakness that you're going, okay, this could be a huge deal. Now, I think Kelvin Sheppard is going to be fine. I think Johnny Morton's going to be fine. I think they're more going to be fine because they've been in this situation before. They've been with this team, and they know guys like Jared Goff. Kelvin Sheppard knows guys like Jab Campbell and Alex Anzalone. So I'm not just throwing this at the hip, but this is a tougher schedule this year. A lot tougher of a schedule when you think about the schedule that the Detroit Lions have. It's tough. It's really, really tough. But when you think about the Detroit Lions, you got the best safety duo in the NFL. You potentially upgrade at corner in the offseason. Terrion Arnold is going to get better. We learned who Amik Robertson was, a straight dog, okay? So your secondary, which we can agree could be potentially really good. Like when you think about the projected secondary, DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, Amik Robertson, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, how many teams would love to have a secondary like that? Then you look on the offensive side of the ball, you have Jameer Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick, Sam Laporta, and your only worry is the interior of the offensive line and who's on the opposite side of Hutch. Like I said before, you ask the normal everyday fan that doesn't follow at NFL, who's on the opposite side of Myles Garrett? Who's on the opposite side of TJ Watt? Who's on the opposite side of Max Crosby in Vegas? It's virtually silent. So what I'm trying to say is Detroit was trending towards being a top 5 defense with Aidan Hutchinson healthy, and they fell off because injuries got the best of them. But I can realistically say, with no shock jock, with no stupid opinion, that the Detroit Lions could have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. And I don't just say this lightly. I never put my opinions like this out. Like, I don't make these broad opinions for clicks or videos or views or whatever the case may be. But I do believe the Detroit Lions could have a top 5 offense and top 5 defense. And even seeing what they did to the Dolphins today in joint practices, which I weigh heavily, that didn't even matter to me. But the fact of the matter is, like, this team, You think about how hard it is for Hutchinson to go against Sewell. You think about St. Brown and DJ Reed going against each other, Jameson Williams and DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, St. Brown, like mano y mano. The iron sharpens the iron. Like Goff going against two of the best safeties in the NFL. This team is set up for success. So either you really figure it out or you're going to watch and learn. I don't think anybody that's a Lions fan is going to go, oh my God, they're not top 5 defense. Just go to the defense and look how good it is. Like what happened last year was an anomaly. You lost guys like you lost Alex Anzalone, you lost Rodriguez, you lost Derek Barnes, who was coming to his fold, you lost Hutchinson, you lost McNeil. You had your front 7 by the end of the year had 2 players that were started the year in your front 7. 2. So what I'm trying to say is the Lions, they got healthy, they got better, and and people can look at the coordinator positions, but let's be completely honest with ourselves. The Detroit Lions are a damn good football team, and I think that I was going to say this for a season preview, but again, this is going to be a really good year for the Detroit Lions. I'm excited. I'm truly excited for what's to come from this team. And we'll talk about more on JC Sports YouTube page, Detroit Lions News Podcast. And subscribe to JC Sports because we have a jersey giveaway that we're doing. Go to Detroit Lions News Podcast on Facebook and you'll see the link and everything. So we'll see you in the next video to talk more Detroit Lions football. We got a podcast tomorrow, so we'll talk to you then.